did he talk to you about me? Trading more stories.
The world of Marvel is quite intriguing. Those of you who are fans know that the movies are connected with their plot and character development. This year, we were honored to watch Black Widow in movie theaters. The thing about Marvel is that it is never enough to watch the movie once. Sometimes you have to just rewatch it just in case you missed an important detail. Black Widow is no exception, and in today's video, we will talk about Black Widow details you might have missed the first time around. But before we get into the video, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new videos we post. Did you know that Black Widow takes place exactly after the events of Captain America: Civil War? We all remember how Natasha Romanoff died in Avengers Endgame. So you may wonder, how in the world can a Black Widow movie exist? The truth is that the film takes place before whatever happened in Endgame. In a 2019 interview, Johansson explains that the movie takes place not long after Civil War. Here is what she says in an interview. "Yeah, the post-Civil War felt like a good time to start. I mean, we never intended to do an origin story. I never wanted to do an origin story because I just didn't want to go back. I wanted to move forward. Even though we are going back, it all makes sense when you see it. But it felt like a good time because Natasha has always been a part of some operation. She's always been an operative, and she's actually never really had to, for better or worse, make any decisions for herself. She's made decisions, but she's part of this greater whole, whether it was the Red Room or S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Avengers, She's had this kind of family, for better or worse. And then after Civil War, it's gone. It's all gone. Everything is gone, and for the first time ever, really, she's just on her own. She could totally disappear into the ether, and that would be that. She doesn't have to return to anything, which is a pretty terrifying place to be when you've been attached to something for so long and now you're suddenly floating. Obviously, she's very self-sufficient. I mean, she has connections everywhere and whatever, but she's kind of on the lam and she's feeling like a fugitive, and it's a really interesting place to start. Like, all the pieces are everywhere, and how do we connect everything back together? When you find her in the beginning of the film, she's just broken. By the end of the film, the goal is to put her back together differently than before, And we, Kevin and I, at the very beginning, we agreed it was clear that that was the best place to start in the timeline. Do you remember that confusing moment in 2012's Avengers about Dreykov's daughter? You could not have possibly missed the part where we finally find out what happened to Dreykov's daughter. She was first mentioned in 2012 Avengers, but without explanation. In the Avengers, we see Loki ask Natasha the following: "Can you wipe out that much red? Dreykov's daughter, Sao Paulo, the hospital fire? Barton told me everything. Your ledger is dripping. It's gushing red. And you think saving a man no more virtuous than yourself will change anything?" So who exactly was General Dreykov? He was the officer who was in charge of the Red Room program, where many young women, including Natasha, were trained to become professional assassins. Well, now we know that Loki was referring to the Budapest operation when he mentioned Dreykov's daughter. In Black Widow, we find out that Nat was the one responsible for the death of Dreykov's daughter. Well, at least that's what she thought. The reality was that Nat and Clint Hawkeye set in motion an explosion which left the girl disfigured. After that, Dreykov turned his daughter into a deadly weapon, a warrior with a mask who is able to analyze, assess, and mimic everyone's powers. Crazy, right? Alexei Alanovich Shostakov, also known as the Red Guardian, is a Soviet-Russian soldier with superpowers. He is the father of two surrogate daughters, Natasha Romanoff and Yelena Belova. As we find out, he hands his daughters over to Dreykov. Despite that, he really cared for them, and here is why. I am sure you all noticed his tattoos. No, not the Red Guardian tattoo, the other one. When the camera focused on the right arm, we could see two roses with names under them. Those names are Natasha and Yelena, written in Russian. Here is one more detail you may have missed. Did you notice the scene where Yelena asks Nat if she ever wished to have children of her own? She actually referred to the sterilization ceremony the young assassins had to receive in the Black Widow program. It was noticeable that Nat got a little bit misty-eyed but did not respond. "In the Red Room where I was trained, where I was raised, they have a graduation ceremony," said Romanoff. "They sterilize you." Let us also remind you of the scene from Avengers: Age of Ultron where Nat discusses her infertility with Bruce Banner, the Hulk, with whom she had a romantic relationship at that time. Bruce was nervous that his Hulk DNA would be inherited by his child, so Nat told him not to worry about it as she was unable to have children. She made it seem as if it never actually bothered her, but her face said otherwise. Did you notice the vest Natasha was wearing in Infinity War? It was gifted to her by Yelena. Natasha actually wears Yelena's handy vest in Avengers Infinity War. In Black Widow, we see Yelena tell Nat that the vest is the very first piece of clothing she ever bought for herself, and that she made some modifications to it. You can put so much stuff in there, you wouldn't even know, Yelena says. Now, let us talk about the scene where Yelena makes fun of the over-sexualized way the Black Widow was shown early in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It does look like you think everyone's looking at you, like all the time, Yelena says. She tells Nat that she is a total poser with all the sexy poses and hair flips she's used to doing. During a set visit for the film, Johansson even said that when she was first introduced to the world of MCU, the character was overly sexualized and treated like a possession. When Scarlett was asked about how sexualization of her character affected the movie, she responded by saying, "Yeah, it definitely has changed, and I think part of that change is probably, it's hard because I'm inside it, but probably a lot of that is actually from me too. I'll be 35 years old and I'm a mom, my life is different. Obviously, 10 years have passed and things have happened and I have a much different, more evolved understanding of myself. As a woman, I'm in a different place in my life, you know? And I felt more forgiving of myself as a woman, and sometimes probably not enough. I'm more accepting of myself, I think." All of that is related to that move away from the kind of hypersexualization of this character, and I mean, you look back at Iron Man 2, and while it was really fun and had a lot of great moments in it, the character is so sexualized, you know? Really talked about like she's a piece of something, like a possession or a thing or whatever. Like a piece of ass, really. And Tony even refers to her as something like that at one point. What does he say? If we go back to 2010's Iron Man 2, Tony Stark tells his assistant Pepper Potts, "I want some," after seeing Nat fight. Here's what Scarlett Johansson says about this matter in a 2019 interview. "I want some, yeah, and at one point calls her a piece of meat, and maybe at that time that actually felt like a compliment, you know what I mean? Because my thinking was different. Maybe I even would have, my own self-worth probably measured against that type of comment, or like a lot of young women, you come into your own and you understand your own self-worth. It's changing now. Now people, young girls, are getting a much more positive message. But it's been incredible to be a part of that shift and be able to come out the other side and be a part of that old story, but also progress, evolve. I think it's pretty cool." And finally, let us talk about Natasha's mask scene. Do you remember that scene where Nat uses the mask technology to pretend to be another character? She pulled her face off at one point and revealed that she was Melina all along. Fans obviously remember this technique from The Winter Soldier, where Nat was pretending to be another woman. On this note, we end our video. These were just some interesting examples of Black Widow details you might have missed the first time around. There are way more. We would like to know your opinion about the video. Which detail do you think should have gotten into the video? What was the most useful information you heard, and do you agree with everything we said? Do not hesitate to leave a comment down below, and press the like button if you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and talk to you in the next video.